the power to shatter the strongest. Conquer the indestructible with Ronex's collection of angle grinders.
Assalamu alaikum. May the peace and blessings of God be with you. Good evening. You are viewing The Right Fit on IBN, the Islamic Broadcasting Network. I am your host, Bibi Ajuda, former lecturer at Corinth Teachers College and retired school supervisor 3 with the Ministry of Education. Join us as we discuss several topics, including health, education, environment, and technology, to name a few. This platform aims to inform and educate you, our viewers out there, through our discussions and questions with our subject matter expert. Today, this evening, we are discussing autism, something that's been perhaps on the rise in Trinidad and Tobago, and we on the IBN, The Right Fit, are facilitating our viewers' requests. With me in the studio is Dr. Andrea Arundel, Consultant Community Pediatrician. Dr. Arundel, welcome to The Right Fit.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today.
It's a pleasure to have you. I know you're busy and your co-worker, Dr. Bahadur Singh, facilitated, and we must say thank you even at the beginning to him.
Yes.
First of all, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I am a consultant community pediatrician. So I've been a pediatrician I've been working in pediatrics for about 10 years now. And for the last 5 years, I've been kind of focused on more of the developmental aspect. So working with children with additional needs, any sort of developmental differences. So the past 3 years, I was in London, so I was getting some specialized training for the past 3 years in the same community pediatrics. And I just came back in September of last year. So I'm really happy to be back in the warm Trinidad.
Yes.
And I'm happy to just bring back everything that I've learned and, just help our population.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And let's start at the beginning.
Yes.
And our viewers, some of them dealing with it and some of them want to know about it.
Yeah.
What is autism? What exactly do we mean? What is autism from a medical perspective? And what should parents understand?
Yeah.
And we have some slides coming up for you to talk to the slides.
Yes. So autism,
Slide 2.
Yeah, you may hear it referred to as autism spectrum condition, autism spectrum disorder. Colloquially, you may people say on the spectrum. Yeah. But simply, it all means the same thing: autism. And we know that autism, it is a difference in which the brain develops. It makes connections, and because of this difference, it impacts in the way in which people communicate, they behave, and the way they interact with the world around them.
Wow. And we have seen it in Trinidad. And, for parents who be observing their little ones today, what are some of the earliest signs that a child may be on the autism spectrum?
Yeah. So when we're thinking about autism, we kind of look at two broad areas. So the first main area is We look at their social communication and the ways in which they interact.
Okay, and for our viewers, we have a slide up,
Yeah.
right?
So we look at the social communication and then the other broad areas in terms of ways of thinking and their behavior. So being autistic could show itself in many different ways. You mentioned, if we think about the little ones, some of the things that might kind of stand out is in terms of their communication. And what I think is important to highlight is communication could be both verbal and non-verbal. So if we think about verbal communication, the child may have delays in their speech, so they may be saying words a little bit later than you typically expect. They may be more of a quiet child. From a young age, you may think, she's very quiet, not babbling as much as I would expect, or she should be saying her first words by now. Isn't happening, so it can present early on in delays in their what you call expressive language. Yeah.
So this brings me at what age do you think you could detect autism in a child?
Yeah, so sometimes people may see signs from pretty early on, but reliably it's about, we could more confidently say it's about 24 months, so that's the age of 2 years, we will go ahead and sort of give diagnosis. Yeah.
So if somebody, and I know of cases where I think the child is about 3 years and little or no communication in terms of saying sentences, and you are the pediatrician here, what should that parent be doing at this point?
Yeah, so I would think if any parent is worried about their child's development, a good starting point will be take them to a health professional. So it can be either within the public service at your local health center. Some health centers have general pediatricians attached, or your child, if they have a general pediatrician, that would be a good starting point, because pediatricians are trained to, they know the basics of development, and they should be able to do a developmental, at least a basic screen. And if they do find that there are things to be concerned about, they'll be able to refer onwards. So I think a good starting point will be pediatrician or your GP as a first starting point.
And that took me for the next question. What does the journey look like, the diagnostic? And you have started that journey for parents. So it starts there when you go to your pediatrician, and then follow up. Do we have specialists looking, or doctors with autism? I know you are working with them now.
Yes, so there are specialists. It's a kind of newly emerging field. So long ago there were 1 or 2 people that were doing it, but now a lot more, obviously, the younger pediatricians are showing an interest in the developmental medicinal community pediatrics. So I work currently, I'm attached with the Southwest Regional Health Authority. Okay. So anybody within the Southwest, we have clinics that they can be referred into. And in our clinics, we have us community pediatricians where we will do our developmental assessments. And there are similar facilities in the other RHAs. So within North Central, there's a clinic in Mount Hope, and I believe in Arima as well. So there are some within the public service, and then there are some privately.
So you advise the parent here. I mean, I'm taking the ending part of our conversation here, because now that you're talking about the clinics there, what's the process then that when they go to their pediatrician or whoever, and how do they get to you at these centers?
Yeah, so as you say, the pediatrician or the GP or whoever, they see the child, they'll do a physical examination, get a little bit more history, and we want them to just take an overall look at the child, because as you say, not all things may be autism, it could be different things, but we still want them to get a little bit more history about the child, what are the parents' concerns, and they would usually write a referral letter to us, and then the families can take that to the relevant centers. Okay.
And you know, some parents, only this morning, is having a chat with someone. Sometimes they are in denial.
Yeah.
How important is early screening?
Yeah. So that, I just want to say that is very common. the denial talking about. So, when you have a child, even from conception and the child is growing in the tummy, parents, you're thinking 20 years down the road, you're already picturing them when they get married, you picture your whole life for your child. And then, sometimes and then the reality that you're presented with is quite different from what you imagined.
Yes.
And it's a natural response. It's a natural response to, not, when something is different from what you expected. But after we go through that phase, I think I would encourage people to think about the best outcome for the child. And despite your feelings or reservations or fears, and it could be something quite scary, something that you don't want to face, at the end of the day, just to think, putting all of that aside and think about the child and think about the long-term benefits of the child. And we know that from we put the supports in place at an earlier age, when parents understand autism or understand the needs of the child at an earlier age, it definitely helps in the long run. Because sometimes you might be struggling with something for years, and I don't know why he does this. Why does he do this? Why isn't he doing this? Why does she do this differently? Why does this make her happy? Why does this make her sad? And when you understand your child, you're able to help them, and you're able to form that bond, and it goes it goes a long way.
But like you said, autism, we have so much misconception or myths about autism and people, especially a small community like Trinidad.
Yes,
we don't, even some parents don't understand, and that's a relearning, a rethinking back for them. And what are some of the misconceptions people have? And I think we have slide 5 to come up to talk about these misconceptions, myths about autism.
Yeah, so there are lots of myths. I mean, in Trinidad, as you mentioned, and even globally, because I've had the experience working within, quote-unquote first world concepts, and then similar myths you have anywhere you go. Anywhere you go.
They denial, they fear, and they don't know how to deal with that child.
Yes, yeah. So I think we have a slide up.
Yeah.
One of the most kind of common misconceptions that people think that autism is synonymous with having like a learning difficulty or being slow, for lack of a better word. And it's not the same thing. Yeah. Okay. So as we mentioned previously, autism is a difference in which the way in which the brain works. Some autistic individuals do also have learning difficulties. Yeah, it's something that could be occurring simultaneously or co-occurring, but not all autistic individuals have learning difficulties. You could have lots of autistic children with normal or even high-level intelligence.
And they can go through life and be very,
The point
yes.
autism is that we cannot pinpoint the exact cause of it. Yeah, and years of research. Up to recently, what we do know that is something genetic.
It is genetic.
Yeah, it's genetic. We know that it tends to run in families. We know that there's not a single autism gene, but scientists are kind of thinking that it may be a combination of small changes in genes that kind of produce the autistic profile. So we know that is something that just happens. It's just that that's the way the person's brain works, that's the way the person's brain is wired. And nothing such as I mentioned vaccines. Another thing we mentioned is like your parenting style. So even if we go back to the 1940s, there would have been research into autism, and there was one thought that probably sometimes the parents were like non-attached mothers. Yeah. There was this concept of the frigid mother that led to autism. But since then, all of those things have been debunked, and we know it's not due to parenting style or lack of, Caribbean will say she's not training the child need training. Or,
right, that's how the onlooker out there look on at the autistic child, and well, they blame the parent.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes parents blame themselves. They feel, okay, well, maybe I spoiled him, or I wasn't stern enough, or maybe I was too stern.
Right.
We know now this is just the way that autistic individuals are born, and it's nothing to do with vaccines or parenting styles. Yeah.
And one other thing too is stigma attached to it.
Yes.
How do we get away from that?
Yeah.
Our parent came here and she was concerned about that.
Yeah, and that's something that as we see every day, and I think the stigma is what holds back parents from even just like seeking out diagnosis, or because they feel like they'll have a label attached to the child. Because unfortunately, it's something as a society are still working towards. And it's something that parents do find hard and they do find difficult. But I think slowly, as we are becoming more aware about autism, even programs like these where, you know, we try to educate people, I think the more we know, the better that we can do. And when we do better, it should hopefully be a better experience for the parents and the families.
And you know, you talk about sensory overload and emotional regulation. It's going to be challenging. How can parents support a child who struggles in these areas? Now you're looking at home, what they're doing, and I've seen tantrums in children. They undress and they just squeeze and help.
Yeah. So I always tell my parents, being an autistic parent or a parent of an autistic child is kind of like being a detective. And at the end of the day, yes, the professionals are experts, but each parent is an expert in their own child. And we try to empower parents to become an expert and a detective of their child. And I think it starts with learning your individual child's experiences and trying to understand what triggers different behaviors, yeah. And so if we look at sensory, what we call sensory needs, sensory preferences, yeah, we have different sense. We know the 5 senses, so your sight, smell, taste, touch. Then there's some additional things where we talk about like your balance, the awareness of your body in space. So autistic children could be different sensory preferences. So they can be what we call under responsive to sensory input or oversensitive to sensory input. Yeah, so in each of the different senses.
For example, light. Some of them are very
yes,
sensitive to
light.
light.
So you may have a child who, in the studio, who loves the way things look. You might find them, you know, if there's a pattern of something, you might see them looking at it closely. Sometimes if they line up their toys, you may see them going on closely and looking at it, or they may look at things out of the corner of their eyes because it's something as a pleasurable visual kind of input. So it's quite differences, and each child may have their own unique profile when it comes to sensory things, and then not all autistic children may have sensory needs. Yeah,
and like you said, the parent is key factor in this
yes,
one,
so understanding,
to be able to look and observe them.
Yes, exactly. So say, for instance, if we think about a child, if we think about sound, if you know, some children may be oversensitive to sound, so when you go to like a movie or a place that's crowded, very noisy, you might see they become a little bit overwhelmed. And it's us, the parents or the caregivers, to realize, oh, I know my boy, this may be a little bit too much for him. If we go, we may have to know, we can spend a short length of time, or, you know, you make your
trips or whatever you have.
Yeah, your accommodations.
According to the child's
yeah, so you
needs.
make your accommodations based on the child's needs. Yeah.
So it's important really to learn about your child.
Yes.
Because I know I heard a parent saying, you know, she doesn't like the light or extreme crowd and sound.
Yes.
And sometimes that raises a tantrum, and then public pressure on you now make it worse.
Yeah. So I think once we know, so sometimes we might just see the end point, which is the behavior or the tantrum or the what we call emotional dysregulation. But we really need to figure out what is my child trying to communicate to me by this behavior. Sometimes it could be a sensory related thing. Sometimes it could be something about transitioning. It could be a lot of different things about can trigger tantrums. And just a while ago, okay, what changed? And you know, when you learn more, like, oh, I did this. Okay, maybe next time I could do it differently. Yeah.
So you could recommend a diary for parents now dealing with it.
Yes.
So they could understand themselves
Yeah.
and the child.
Yeah.
And say, well, okay, he or she likes this or don't like this, or this is triggers for mention something, neurodiversity. I want you to explain to my audience there.
Yes.
What is neurodiversity and what
Yes.
does it mean and why it is important to embrace it.
Yes.
And I think we have a slide coming up.
Yes.
There we
about
go, audience.
neurodiversity. Yes. So it's important to say that the way in which we think about autism has changed and evolved over the years, and I'm happy to say that it's going in a more positive direction. Yeah, and within the most recent years, within the 90s or so, this new term of neurodiversity sort of came about, and it is the recognition that within a population there will be a variation in the way people think and the way they have their thoughts and their experiences. And sometimes we have typical, and we prefer to use words like typical as opposed to normal and abnormal. Yeah? So people prefer to use the word typical. And so when someone's experiences or the way in which their brain experiences life is quite different from the typical, they may refer to themselves as being neurodivergent. Yeah, so just a recognition of a different way of functioning. So autism is one of the most common things when you think about neurodiversity or somebody being neurodivergent. We think about autism. But if we go back to the graphic,
slide,
we can see it covers a number of different conditions. So we have autism, but things like ADHD, dyslexia, things like OCD, some specific learning difficulties, all of these fall under the larger umbrella term of neurodiversity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's quite a bit actually.
Yeah, and sometimes we adding in more every day.
With one of these, a child could still be able to fit in normal work, as we say, normal with inverted commas, and progress in life.
Yeah, so the whole recognition of neurodiversity, the whole point is to understand that it's a difference and see, so with these differences, we kind of, what we tend to think about is strengths and challenges or areas that they need additional support. So each person will have their strengths, so the areas where they thrive, things that come easy to them, that come naturally to them, and then you'll have areas which are a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging, that need a high level of support. And once we recognize that for each individual, we try to put the relevant supports in place or put in whatever accommodations they may need. And we know that once the right support is given, then, you know, they are able to, as I said, achieve a good long-term. Yeah.
So in your practice, have you seen children improve or diagnosed with one or the other of all of these? And
yeah, so the thing, if we look specifically at autism, although we see quite a lot of conditions, but if we look specifically at autism, what we know is that the way in which autism looks, or the way it impacts a child, it changes from time to time, or as they grow older. We do expect all children to develop, and autistic children are not any different. We do expect them to develop and change over time. So even coming to a clinic, sometimes you may see a 5 or 6 year old, and they may, when you dig back into the history, they'll be like, well, you know, he wasn't talking at all, or he used to do this, he used to do these things, she used to do these things, but now they don't do those things. So it changes, but the key sort of features or key kind of differences, they may always persist, but as you grow, you learn, some children, learn coping skills, coping mechanisms. With your support, things that were a bit more difficult can become a little bit more easy. So it's a dynamic thing. Some parents, when you feel like, okay, I've got this age down, and then they become teenagers, and there's a whole new kettle of fish, and you have to, you know, learn things again, try to figure things out. So it's really a journey.
Okay, so hold that point there.
Yes.
Let's take a break and we'll be right back here.
Okay.
Great taste, cool kids, full of fruit, cool kids with vitamin A, C, and E. Cool kids, we love it. Gotta have cool kids. Give me the cool kids, we love it. I'm a cool kid, we're cool kids, living in a cool kids world. I'm a cool kid, living in a cool kids world.
Fruitopia, the drink that rocks your lunchtime. Fruitopia, Fruitopia, it's a drink that's high. The citrus punch, fruit punch tastes nice. Guava, pineapple, that give me a vibe. We no want nothing less compared to the rest. Fruitopia the best. Punch any thirst when it comes to the test. Perfect thing for my lunch. Flavors pack a punch. Fruitopia, Fruitopia, it's a drink that's high. The citrus punch, fruit punch tastes nice. Fruitopia, the drink that rocks your lunchtime.
Try our new passion fruit flavor today. Taste the passion.
Welcome back. You're viewing The Right Fit, and we're talking to Dr. Arundel, and we're talking about autism. And we talked a little bit about coping mechanisms, I would say, at different times in the life of a child. But what types of therapies or interventions have been shown to be most effective for children on the spectrum? And I know you're going back, you said you have different ones. So give us, take us a little journey, because we just had a comment here that, you know, we want to deal with children. What should we do with them?
Yes. So it'll be on an individual basis. Yeah. So as I think we mentioned, autism is a spectrum, and each child will be unique. Yeah. So you really want to cater to your child's needs. So some of the things that are available, like a key one is the speech and language therapy. Yeah. So speech and language therapy works on their communication. And remember, I was saying communication is verbal and non-verbal.
Correct.
Yeah, so parents kind of have a expectation of speech and language therapy, like you take your child and they train them to talk and they talk. Well, it's not necessarily like that. It's work on their communication. And
I'm an observer, as you said.
Yes.
I see some parents give their children. What's your take on that for communication?
Yes, yeah, definitely. So, you know, sometimes on the iPad, it's really it's what we call kind of like a self-directed activity. So sometimes they're learning quite a lot.
Right.
And, you know, technology does have its place. I think we can't get away from it based on the world that is now, but it's something that we really need to manage. And sometimes autistic children are quite visual learners, so you find that you say, oh, she just learned to, had a child this week, he was making the Greek alphabet. And nobody taught him the Greek alphabet, but he learned it from videos and stuff online. So, and sometimes your child may enjoy the educational bits, but it's not something that you should, it's something that you really have to steward and not leave for an extended period of time, especially the younger one. Yeah, so ideally the screen shouldn't be introduced until 2 you know.
After 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so really working on that sort of communication, so as I say, learning how to communicate with your child, so learning how to you to communicate with your child and your child to communicate with you as well. They may work on things like, you know, just understanding your thing in their own way or in a different way. So speech and language therapy really helps with that, and they really focus on training the parents, yeah, and that's something to really think about, because we think that you know, the therapist might be able to work magic, but the therapist, sometimes if you're lucky, you see them an hour for the week.
Right.
Whereas you are the ones with the child 24/7. So they try to teach you the skills for you to take home and put them in place and practice. Yeah, so that's one of the kind of main things is speech and language therapy. Another form of therapy is something called occupational therapy.
Oh.
Yeah, so occupational therapists, they work with your activities of daily living. So what is your activities of daily living for a child? It will be eating. Your job is to eat, working on feeding yourself. Job is to help with things like dressing, so getting undressed, dressing, brushing your teeth, playing. Yeah, so a child's job is to play.
Right.
Yeah, so they work on, you know, your play skills, things like your hand-eye, so the coordination, your fine motor skills, and occupational therapists, they also have a role in sort of managing your sensory preferences that we kind of spoke about. So some children with like sensory needs, they give advice on to how to understand those needs and you know, meet that input in like a way that's safe and appropriate for the child.
Wow, because I saw in a workshop they were doing a little timetable, like exactly what you're saying, eat, you know, play,
Right.
things like different things, a bath, having a bath, and things to do. They've simplified so the child can understand what
Yes,
to do, when
yeah,
to do it,
yeah.
a little timetable.
Yeah.
But you know, some people complain that our education system doesn't cater for autistic children, especially on the high spectrum. What role do schools play? I mean, and some of them do go to school, and class teacher now is important here.
Yeah.
How can our education system better support autistic children?
Yes, yeah.
Big question here.
Yes, it's a big question. And I would like to say that every child has a right to an education.
Right.
Yeah. Last week in clinic, I saw a child, he was about 6 years old, never been to preschool, never been to any school. And when I was kind of questioning, so how come he didn't, you know, what's been happening? And he said, you know, I didn't know that he could go to school. I thought because he was autistic, he couldn't go to school.
So tell our parents out there.
Yeah, so every child, whether they're different or not, has a right to education. Yeah. What is important is education may look different for them. They may learn in a different way. So as we were mentioning, a lot of autistic individuals can learn really well visually. Yeah. So things like visual timetables and pictures help a lot. They can grasp things visually. And then sometimes, you know, processing things orally, auditory processing could be a little bit more challenging. So I believe working in an individualized sort of approach to education is what is important. So as we mentioned, it's a spectrum, and what might work for one child may not work for another
Correct.
child. Yeah, but it starts with understanding that there are differences. That's the first point. Not expecting all children to be the same. We're not a one-size-fits-all society. So even as educators, understanding that there may be differences, and really trying to support the children at their level of need.
Because
Yeah.
I got a complaint that the child was placed at the back of a classroom. They do have different ways of learning as
Yes,
well.
yeah.
But now this child, somewhere on the spectrum,
Yeah.
is in a classroom. How can you, what advice you want to give the teachers out there?
Yeah, yeah. So as I said, if you see a child that for some reason is falling behind, you might notice some differences, bring that to the parents' attention, and really look to see, okay, what supports do I need to put in this? What needs to happen next? Okay, maybe I do need to advise the parent, go and get them assessed, go and get them checked out. So not just, kind of writing off children. Maybe if you notice something different or you feel that you're not able to cope, say something.
Yes.
So it might be the parent may need to have the child assessed, and then also within education there are things called student support services.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Yes.
maybe I might think, okay, well, maybe I need to refer the child to student support services. Maybe he might need a psychoeducational assessment. Maybe the child has ADHD, maybe he has dyslexia, and really want to get to the nitty-gritties. And when you understand, then you know, okay, this is what the child needs. You may need more individual attention. You may just need a smaller class size, or maybe you may not be able to, mainstream education may not be the best place for them. May need to go to a special school.
Right.
Yes, just really being curious and having that desire to meet the needs of the child. Yeah, and
And
seek their best interest.
All this can be overwhelming for a parent.
Definitely.
Receive and feeling, what would you say to them?
Yeah, it is overwhelming. I'll start by saying it can be overwhelming, and that is a completely legitimate feeling, and is human, and sometimes you might beat yourself up about it, but it is completely valuable, completely understandable reaction to feel overwhelmed, because it is overwhelming. And but what I tend to tell parents is to think short term. Yeah, so sometimes we can get overwhelmed when we start to think 20 years down the road, and I wonder if he'll ever be independent, and I wonder who will take care of him. Sometimes that makes me work on. You think, the next thing I want to do is getting him ready for preschool. Or if I say I really want to work on his potty training, and so for the next few months I'm really going to put my energy into potty training, and then hopefully you got through with that. Okay, the next few months I really want to work on his communication.
Okay.
The next few months I really want to work on his hand skills.
So you're giving parents some techniques there.
Yes, yeah. So
and one step at a time.
One step at a time. I think
But
definitely
as I
one
said,
step at a time.
daunting for parents. What about the
Yeah.
extended family, grandparents, cousins, aunties? What
Yeah.
role can they play to help a parent?
Yes. So I think the family unit is really important, and unfortunately some people don't have that. You meet a lot of single and other things that lead people to feel overwhelmed. But if you are in a situation where you do have that extended family, I think try to lean on them for support. I think it may start, a good starting point will be actually highlighting the differences of the child, because sometimes grandparents or parents, they may be accustomed to children who may be more typical, and they might have that standard of behavior.
Right.
And then when a child doesn't meet that standard of behavior, they could sometimes react inappropriately to them.
It's
So I
an
think
education process there too.
So being on this, being open about your child, what they like, what they don't like, what you think works best for them, what doesn't work best for them. I think once the extended family are all on the same page, they're able to best support the child and the parent as
The
well.
parents get some more support once they understand.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's another tip for parents out there. Get the family involved. But let's go beyond the home now. What about the community, the churches, the NGO? How can they make more inclusive spaces for these children?
Yeah, definitely, because the child, and what we don't want is for the child to exist within a little bubble, which is just the parents and the child. And sometimes
Right.
you find that happening for various reasons. One was the stigma that we talk about.
Right.
So we want the child to have home. You feel free to have extended family members within, as you said, churches, mosques, wherever they may be. You want them to be able to have access to all of those places. And for parents and children to feel free to access those places, we really need to make them places where they are aware about autism. And I know we kind of awareness to acceptance. I know sometimes we want to reach acceptance, but sometimes we're still not even aware.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Hopefully this program would help all
Yes.
these people.
Yes.
They become aware of it
Yeah.
and to contribute or to
Yeah,
help.
so just even if you are aware at a situation where, you know, the child is autistic, and then somebody within the community made a comment about the child.
Yep.
Not having an understanding
And it's
about
common
it.
in Trinidad.
Yes, and then
especially.
parents will feel offended, and you feel
embarrassed.
You feel embarrassed, and you don't want to go back to the church. You don't want to go back to
Yeah.
that place, and it's just because people not aware. So I think if we start at making people a bit more aware, and they could understand, okay, all right, well, maybe I need to be a little bit more understanding. Okay, maybe they may need to walk up about during the service. They may need to walk about.
Exactly.
Yes,
So,
they may, yeah.
and that brings, I know, being an educator, maybe a parent belonging to some church or mosque, talk to the person in charge and say, you know,
Yes.
I want to be included, but my child is like that.
Yeah.
And part of their service or their sermon could
Yeah.
talk about what is autism and said, if you see a child,
Yes.
please,
Yeah.
you know, embrace
Yes,
the child.
have some understanding.
Have some
Yes,
understanding
yes.
and empathy for the parents.
Yes,
And that
yes.
might help us to start educating one another.
Yeah, and parents will feel less isolated, because I think isolation is a big thing.
I know I've had parents who say they feel daunted.
Yes,
And
yeah.
sometimes when they trigger something and a tantrum, they
Yeah.
don't know what to do.
Yes, yeah. Then you feel embarrassed, and then you just be like, oh, I'm not going back again. You know. So yeah, but that's something we really need to work towards.
And
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about it, but how can we advocate for this? For child within the school system, for parents, how can parents advocate? I mean, I don't know if there's a group of parents. Do they have that in Trinidad?
Yeah, so there are several support groups. Yeah, they are like Support Autism, National Autistic Society. There are quite a lot of support groups, and when you meet other parents, parent-to-parent support is really invaluable as well, because you feel
You could share.
Yes, you share experiences, or you know, say if your child's a little bit younger, my child's a little bit older. Oh, my child used to do this, and this is what I did, and I got this from this place, so I tried this school. So that sort of networking is really important.
How is it large enough to accommodate our autistic children, or it's growing, or where is that on your?
Yeah, there's several. You know, you just kind of have to, you know, as again from our clinics, we might be able to kind of point you towards. There are lots of like Facebook groups and in-person societies as well.
I do remember seeing something on Facebook where they were asking you to join something where they talk about it, and I think it's coming out more now.
Yes.
That you know, parents could join an autism seminar or a webinar so they can learn something more about what is autism, how to deal especially with their child there.
Yeah, because the NGOs are really good resource, because our clinics, we may be able to focus on, you know, the health aspects of things, or assessment and so, but in terms of the real, you know, training and that networking and support, a lot of that will take place outside of the clinic setting. So it's something we really would try to direct parents towards.
it. And then, you know, when you think about a child on the spectrum growing up, what does a positive, hopeful future look like?
Yeah, a hopeful future will be one in which the child is understood, where their strengths are celebrated and their needs are supported. And we hope that with that understanding and that additional support in place, they will reach whatever their potential is. Nobody knows the future, so I can't predict this child is never going to do this or this child will do this with certainty. But we do know that with the relevant supports, they stand a better chance at reaching their developmental potential.
Once the parent be the detective, and I like that one, and analyze, and they're supporting at all times, finding out the good, the bad, the ugly, and
Yes,
everything.
yes,
They
yes.
can really help that child along inclusive and more accepted with autism. What do you think we need to
Getting there slowly. I think within recent times it's coming. It's slow, but the volume that we're kind of seeing, it kind of increasing that capacity. Yeah.
So the number of cases are increasing.
Well,
Are they?
I think we are getting, as a society, and this is globally as well, I think we're getting better at understanding and picking up things. So we're getting better at diagnosing. So whereas maybe 20, 30 years ago, autistic child might be, oh, well, he's just a little quirky.
And I
A
know
little
they
bit
are.
more.
Are there successful autistic children out there?
Yeah, definitely.
In Korea Park.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Do you have any?
definitely.
I know people are saying that.
Yeah.
A friend told me that the teacher used to be autistic and now she's a teacher.
Yeah.
So then she can help
Yes.
others and really understand
Yes.
how to help them more
Yeah.
than anybody else.
Yeah, and a lot of autistic people themselves grow up and become advocates, because they understand they are experts by experience, because they have their own lived experience of being someone who is autistic, and they grow up and they learn to advocate for themselves and for others as well.
So,
yeah.
and I know a parent would have asked me, when a child is having a meltdown, let's call it that, what are some advice you'll give a parent? In spite of all the learning and everything, how
Yes.
to deal with that? Put your hand up in here.
Yeah. So one thing, we spoke about, kind of understanding triggers,
Yeah.
but if you're in the middle of one,
What?
one, I know it's hard to say, but keeping you yourself calm. Yeah.
Okay.
So, because the child can be dysregulated and then you dysregulated, and the two of you all having a meltdown at the same time.
Right.
So as much as possible, try to, not be reactionary, but try to, parents have to kind of become masters of, regulating their own selves before you could kind of help your child regulate. And what we kind of talk about is like co-regulation and learning what helps them feel better. So for some children, when they're upset, they don't want you to touch them.
Yeah.
You might need to leave them alone. They will calm down on their own. You may need to take them away from whatever their stimulus is, if it's noise or if it was a particular toy that they wanted. You might need to take them away from that. Another child may need touch to regulate. So if they may need you to give them a nice tight hug, squeeze them. They may need you to talk to them gently. They may need you to stroke their back. And so you kind of but that's what we call co-regulation. So you kind of helping them so they may be at 100 and you're trying to bring them back slowly
down.
to their baseline. Yeah.
Another someone told me is they like to undress and just stay just so and scream. Take out all their clothes. That's part of the whole thing too. How do you, a parent, I'm looking at tips for parents here.
Yeah, the understanding, okay, because as I said, sometimes that child may not be able to say, Mommy, I am feeling very hot. This clothes or this material is irritating me. It's feeling not nice on my skin. I feel better. Like they're not able to
Distinguish.
to communicate
indicate
that. But as I said, but through time, trying to figure out, so not all behavior is purposeless. Most of the time, they are trying to communicate something you know, and just put him on a typical, he might take it off.
Right.
Yeah, so really just trying to
Understand
yeah.
that child, and
Yeah.
it takes more out of you
Yeah.
as a parent.
Yeah, and sometimes you might need the help of the therapist, because I say you may be new to the journey, you don't understand, but therapist might be able to explain. Oh, well, this is why he does, and then you're like, oh, this makes, and the
sense.
lights start
A light
turning
bulb.
on, and then you're able to, yeah.
So, what final message would you like?
It's a loaded question. But yeah, so I would like to say that it is a journey. Yeah, being a parent of an autistic child is a journey, and it's a lifelong journey. You are there. Is something that could be quite rewarding and quite beneficial in the long run. So it's a journey. Take it, and each journey has different steps, different paths. But it's a journey, and just focus on the next step and thinking about your child, where you are to the journey, where you kind of want to see things heading, and think about what are the steps that I need to take for me to be able to help my child get the support that he needs, and to have a good, as you said, good and fulfilling life. And then also, I don't think we had enough time to go fully into the whole spectrum concept, but just to remember that autism is a spectrum, everyone is different, every child is unique, and think about not necessarily the diagnosis or the label or anything like that, but just think about your child. And I would suggest just becoming an expert on your child, celebrate what they do well, acknowledge that they do well. Yeah, because sometimes we can get kind of stuck on what is not going so well, but acknowledge what they do.
Dr. Arundel, thank you so much for your expertise and your heart with us today, sharing all of this today. To our viewers, if you're parenting a child with autism, supporting a family member, or simply want to understand more, remember, every child deserves dignity, patience, and a chance to thrive.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on The Right Fit. So all good things come to an end, and she promised to come back some other time
Yes.
to join us again. I know April is Autism Month,
Wednesday, yeah.
and that's why your the circle at the beginning was blue.
Right,
Right?
yes.
They blue. So
Yeah.
this brings us to we are stepping into the month of Ramadan. So thank you for viewing out there. Thank Almighty God for this opportunity. I thank my staff at the back, Siddiq, Siddiqa, and Brother Hasib for sharing and helping us in this program. Please watch us on Facebook or Tigo TV or YouTube. I want to tell you that, as I said before, this will be, if you have questions or if you have information or you would like to be in the studio, number is, we will get that up for you just now. The boys will get it for you. And 645-4426. All right? So be compassionate. If you see autistic children or a child or their parent, or someone with a child, please reach out, learn about the child, and help us to help ourselves and others.
When the moment comes to honor a loved one, compassion, dignity, and faith matter most. Come to Shyam's Islamic Funeral Services Limited. Coordination, burial arrangements, and special international repatriation services of your loved ones. With professionalism, with respect, with heart. Shyam's Islamic Funeral Services Limited, serving our community with honor.
The power. To shatter the strongest. Conquer the indestructible with Ronex's collection of angle grinders.
Construction Services and Supplies Limited has built a reputation over the years on reliability, honesty, and pride, with a qualified and experienced workforce to oversee all projects, commercial, industrial, and institutional. We deliver the highest quality designs, build and remodel equipped for the pulse of construction needs. Construction Services and Supplies Limited, 1324 Southern Main Road in Rapport.